A word of warning. If you're easily offended by cannibalism, death, torture, and fascinating facts about the human body, this series may not be for you. Therefore, listener discretion is advised. Cannibalism. Could you eat a whole human being? With the help of a doctor, a scientist, and a chef, I set out to see if it's possible. Cannibalism. Part 18. Waste. If a human was only made of meat, a cannibal could shave them like a rotisserie of tasty kebab meat and dine like a king. But they aren't, as 46% of the human body is used to process various forms of waste. 2013, Italy. Lino Renzi beat his mother Maria to death, cut her body into pieces with a saw, froze the meat, and the neighbours only became suspicious when the intestines he popped on the grill caught fire. Being Italian, it was suggested he was making the local dish torcinelli, a sausage stuffed with offal, tomato, onion, basil and parsley. Only this time, he wasn't using lamb's intestines, he used his mama's. What parts of a corpse a cannibal eats is dependent on their culture, as although we may retch at an eyeball being burst by the Bedouin, they would rightly retch at what we put into a haggis or a hot dog. So the waste, excluding the skin, kidneys, liver, lungs and the blood, which we've already covered, the excretory or urinary system includes the bladder and the intestines, as well as the rectum and the colon. Delicious. As a passive biological system, which unlike walking and talking requires us to consciously do nothing, our excretory system expels waste products like solids, liquids and gases. Each day, the average person expels a minimum of 3 litres of sweat, 3.5 pints of urine, 1,500 millilitres of gas, and 400 grams of poo. So across the year, that amounts to 320 pounds or 450 kilos. In effect, we poo the weight of an adult panda. So can we eat those organs which process our waste? Weighing 3.5 kilos, 15 to 20 feet long, are made of 3 to 5 millimeter fibrous muscle and a layer of mucus, whose wave-like contractions move food throughout the GI tract. The intestines could provide a cannibal with 6,300 calories, enough for 2.5 days. Described as tender and fatty, with a chewy resistance and a slightly sweet taste, they have no urine or fecal smell if they're cleaned and washed properly. Chitterlings, cow's intestines stuffed with offal, herbs and vegetables, are boiled and fried and are common across the world. So with one human's intestines, enough to feed 5 cannibals for a day. If we made use of the 167,000 people who die daily, the dead could feed the citizens of Charlotte, North Carolina. The bladder is a tough piece of protein to prepare, so most countries only use it as a casing. And at just 32 grams, with a wall just 1 millimeter thick, it only contains 12 calories. Unlike a cream cracker, which is 15, and it also contains uric acid, ammonia, and a parasitic worm which can be transmitted person to person. Of course, if you wanted to go old school, from our annual dead, if we just used the bladders, we could make 60 million 19th century footballs. As for the rectum, with crispy pig's rectum being a delicacy in South Korea, as the red glistening tissue contains mucus glands. Oh yum! From the dead, you could feed anus to the population of a soul for 10 whole days. Which I'm sure they'll love, as long as you ignore the fact that according to microbiologist Dr. Gerber, even after the average human has wiped their anus, it still has 1/10 of a gram of poo stuck to it. Even in animals, rarely do we eat the waste system as part of our daily diet. So why should a cannibal? Most unusable parts of an animal are turned into cattle feed. So although we may balk at cannibalism, we're okay with feeding dead chickens to live ones, cow corpses to active moose, and pig stiffs to their own relatives. But for the queasier cannibal, maybe it's worth enlisting a furry faithful friend. Humans are carnivores, whereas dogs are hypercarnivores, who produce 100 times the stomach acids that we do, and as scavengers, they can rapidly digest meat, bones and fat that we would find impossible. 2018, Mexico. Juan Carlos Bayeux and Patricia Martinez Bernal were convicted of 20 counts of torture and murder, with the bodies found in 20-litre buckets buried under concrete. Many were missing organs, and although impossible to prove, it was said that the hearts were fed to the dogs, as well as some of the innards. But this is not uncommon, as dogs will eat anything. The inspiration for Mason Verger, Dr. Lecter's nemesis in Hannibal by Thomas Harris, came from real life. New York, 1970s. While high on PCP, a man known only as Michael smashed a mirror, sliced off the skin from his face, gouged out one of his eyes, and then fed that to a German shepherd and her 2 puppies. The vet managed to get her to sick up his lips, his nose, and some of his face. But with her digestive system being so efficient, his face was beyond saving. Phew. So, after all that grossness, you're probably thinking, are we finished? No. After the organs comes the waste products, as isn't that part of a human too? Come on, cannibals, don't be cowardly. The average human's colon holds 8 to 25 pounds or 11 kilos of fecal matter. And with the bowel never empty, every corpse has a little brown package in transit containing bacteria such as Salmonella and E. coli. And if you think for a second that a cannibal wouldn't eat poo, as an example, Mark Redwin of Colorado killed his 13-year-old son Dylan after he found photos of him dressed in a sexy bra and eating feces from a nappy. At 4 calories per gram, we expel 1,200 calories down the toilet daily. And although urine can be sterilized to remove its toxins, it's unlikely that child killer Albert Fish did this when he drank piss. Sweat, on the other hand, comprises of water, salt and electrolytes. But a cannibal would burn more calories just trying to drink it from the skin. And although many mammals and birds regurgitate their food, the butyric acid we produce in our vomit is highly corrosive to our nose, throat, eyes and lungs. And thank God, as that would be a real bummer at family mealtimes. So why doesn't a cannibal outside of the Agori tribe eat human waste? As said before, the eating of human flesh is a sexual practice. The same way that those with coprophilia get an intense sexual arousal from feces and defecation, and those with urolagnia get the same from urine. People are weird, with it said that 32% of men have fantasized about having sex using either wee or poo, and women are more inclined to do queening, or as a humiliating act against the male, sitting on a smother box. If you're not too sure what that is, Google it. Criminal cannibalism isn't about food. It's about power, sex and revenge. With many cannibals eating human flesh in retaliation for childhood abuse and trauma. For example, Ed Gein made a skin suit. Dennis Nilsen slept with dead bodies. And Robert Black took snaps of himself with a wine bottle up his backside. So is eating human waste any more embarrassing? Maybe they're appalled by it. Or maybe, like all poo fetishists, they keep quiet about their dirty habits, as even for a cannibal, some perversions are a step too far. Join me tomorrow as we explore whether a cannibal's stomach can digest another person's stomach.